Hello, everyone. I think we are live now. We are going to begin in a few minutes with this lunch and learn for Pesach. I actually already had my lunch, but I'm going to have my coffee and my chocolate treat during the class. So we are going to wait 2-3 minutes, still a little early, but I just wanted to be sure that everything is working okay. The chat is open, so if you want to interact with me, you should use the chat feature either in Facebook or YouTube. So you can start by doing that. Meanwhile, I'm going to open some stuff here that I'm going to need for the class. So you have to give me 1 minute. Very good. Judy, you're here. Hi. Excellent. So it's working. So let me change this. You see, I discovered a new way of going live that is a little fancier, so I can change the captions just like this. Look. Huh. What about that? Very good. Yeah, people are showing up. Have a little bit more of my coffee. Hey, hi Claire. Welcome. Hi Christy. Bonjour. Yeah, I know that one, but I think that's probably the only French word I know. Yeah. Hi Jean. Excellent. People are starting to show up, mostly on Facebook, eh? I guess what I discovered, yeah, Facebook has better notification than YouTube. Oh, but Rocky is here. Very good. So on YouTube. I shouldn't have spoken so fast. Gord is here saying greetings. Pauline, Harry Odwag. Hello. So I guess my microphone works. I have like this home studio. Looks like a radio studio, but because I have the cameras, I guess it's also a TV studio. And it's getting fancier and fancier in these days. But yeah, we have to. One of the things that I learned in these days is, and I think it's going to stay afterwards, is how people have to learn to do things themselves. Many things that we used to rely on other people or on other companies before, more and more people are starting to do it themselves at home. All the way from this, like streaming to cooking to even cutting hair. It's quite amazing. Quite amazing. And then I realized that you have so many tutorials for many things on YouTube that before they were just there sitting, not too many people watching, but now that exploded. It's quite interesting. So let's see how we're doing here. My internet is working okay. My studio is working okay. Okay. So I guess we can start with today's class. It's already 1 minute after noon. So we welcome everyone to the class. Hi, Alice. And so I'm going to use a PowerPoint and I'm going to share my screen with you. So this is the one you're going to work, hopefully. You're going to be able to see my face, and then I'm going to try to alternate between me and the slides, so it will feel a little bit more interactive. It's still awkward for me to just talk to my computer and relying on the chat to see your reaction, because my classes are usually very interactive. People interrupt me all the time, and then I comment on that. So feel free to send your comments during the class. I will do my best to read them as I share my screen. I don't know how that is going to work, but I'll do my best. Welcome, Alan Cantor. Now that you are here, we can start. And yeah, I will put this here. See, you can use the chat box to send me your comments during the class, and feel free to use Facebook or YouTube. But remember, you need an account. in either Facebook or YouTube to be able to use the chat. So, yeah. Okay. So let's begin with this topic that I wanted to talk to you today, and it's about, are we really free? Because we know that Pesach is all about freedom. In fact, one of the names of Pesach is Man Herutenu, which means the time of our freedom. And because we celebrate the Exodus and the fact that we are not slave to Pharaoh anymore. But I also noticed that the concept of freedom that the Torah seems to imply is not the same concept of freedom that some people have. It's way more complex in Judaism, and hopefully we are going to tap into that in today's class, and what really means to be free. Because I don't know if you remember from the biblical narrative that when Moses was going to talk to Pharaoh before every plague, it wasn't just let my people go. You see, that seems to be what people always remember, let my people go, and we write music about that, let my people go. But it wasn't just that. It was, let my people go to serve God in the mountain. Remember back in the Torah that it wasn't just about the freedom, but it was a goal in mind that seems to imply that what Moses wanted to do is to take the Israelites out of bondage from Egypt and to put them, so to speak, into bondage of God. So we don't serve Pharaoh anymore. So now we serve God. So basically we are replacing Pharaoh with God. But we are replacing one master with another master. That's the thing. So this is the thing. So are we really free? Or are we just changing masters? So if that's the case, why we call it the time of our freedom if we are also serving something else? And that's the whole idea. Okay? So, yeah, Alan said that I'm correct. Okay, very good. Hi, Marvin. Hi, Karina. Hi, Alina. Excellent that you could join me on the class. So first we have to understand some of the words that we are going to use in this class. So for that, I need to show you this. Here we go, I think. Yeah. What happened here is I went to the internet and I tried to find some of the definition of the word freedom. And they were endless. It was an endless list. So I just picked a few of them. The first one that you can see is the state of being free or a liberty rather than in confinement or under physical restraints, right? An example, he won his freedom after a retrial. Or the exemption from external control, interference, regulation, etc. Such person, we call it that is a free person. The power to determine action without restraint, political or national independence, right? We live in a free country. Personal liberty as opposed to bondage or slavery. So that's an example, a slave who bought his or her freedom. Or the absence of or release from ties, obligation, etc. So that's the thing. And we usually use the word freedom to talk about each one of those things. Funny thing is, in Hebrew, we have many different words to talk about different kind of freedoms. I guess in English we also have it, but we are not so familiar with that. I guess lawyers will be more familiar with different words to talk about different kind of freedom. But for most people, they would just use the word freedom. But in Hebrew, to try to understand the different concepts, first we have to go all the way to the Torah. This is a very important thing, to go all the way to the Torah, because in Hebrew we have different words for different kind of freedom. So the first one I wanted to show you is in Exodus 21:2. This is specifically talking about the slaves, the Hebrew slaves. So you see, it says, "Ki tikne eved ivri 6 shanim ya'avod ובשביעית יצא לחופשי חינם. When you acquire a Hebrew slave, he should serve 6 years. In the 7th year, he should go free. But the word we use here in Hebrew for free is חופשי. They will go without payment, whatever. Okay, so this is the first word used in the Bible, the word חופשי. And it's talking about specifically about a slave that is not a slave anymore. Now, this word might be for you, might be familiar to you from the Hebrew, the Israeli anthem for the Hatikvah. Remember? Liotam chofshi be'artzeinu, right? To be free in our land, the land of Israel. So this is the first concept of freedom that we read in the Torah. So let's see if we have, I want to say Ava is the free will. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is, we are just trying to define the different words we use. So, and the other word that we use in the Torah is coming from the book of Leviticus, actually chapter 25. You see, and it says, and you shall hallow the 50th year. It's talking about the Jubilee. You know, in the Torah, we learn about 2 different concepts. One was the Sabbatical Year, the other one was the Jubilee. Sabbatical Year was every 7 years. Jubilee was every 50 years. And there was some kind of release from slaves, from lands, from debts. It's kind of interesting. But I don't want to go too much into it. But the word used there for freedom or release is different than the word used in Exodus. Here said, and you shall hallow the 50th year. You shall proclaim release, in Hebrew, deror, throughout the land for all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each of you shall return to his holdings, and each of you shall return to his family. Okay? So this is about the Jubilee year. So this is an interesting thing, because given the choice of these biblical words, right? When the rabbis choose to speak of liberty at this time of the year, for the freedom of Pesach, they choose neither. They didn't choose Chofshi. They didn't choose the roar. For the commemoration of the Exodus, they chose a word not known until rabbinic times. We are going to talk about it in a minute, but the words the rabbis used to define freedom in Pesach is not known in the Bible. It was kind of a new word that it was common for the rabbis. So, as we sing in the Kiddush for Pesach, I don't know if you remember from the Seder, that we said, Et Chag HaMatzot Hazeh, Zman Cheruteinu Mikra Kodesh Zecher Letziat Mitzrayim. We say, the Feast of Matzot, in this season of our freedom, a holy convocation commemorating the Exodus from Egypt. So the word used by the rabbis for all the Pesach liturgy and everything around Pesach is Cheirut. So it's not Chofshi, it's not the roar, it's Cheirut. But it's kind of funny. Why would they use that word if they already have 2 other words that they are coming from the Torah? Keep that in mind. So to understand this, we need to think about the different connotation of these different freedom words. So the type of freedom that they represent. So what would that be? Let me go back here. And let's talk a little bit about these 3 different words. So this is, I believe, what the rabbis understood. The 2 words used for freedom in the Bible, they're actually talking about this kind of freedom without any attachment. You are free, when it's talking about the slavery from when you acquire a slave in the Bible, now that slave is free, it means that he has no attachments to you or to anybody else whatsoever. It's that kind of freedom without any responsibility. It's just free to do whatever he or she wants. Same thing happened with the second one, with the roar, when you don't have any debt or any kind of attachment to anybody else. So you are absolutely free. But that's not the kind of freedom that we are talking here about Pesach, because it's a kind of freedom from Pharaoh, but as I mentioned before, we still have a responsibility to serve God instead. So let's go back here. And we are going to see in a minute how the word cherut is used in other rabbinic texts, so we can understand better why they use this word to define our kind of freedom from Pesach. One of the earliest places that I could find of the rabbis using the word cherut is on Pirkei Avot. This is from the Mishnah. Okay? It's on chapter 6. This is in number 2, and it says, Rabbi Joshua ben Levi said, every day a bat call, heavenly voice, goes forth from Mount Horeb and makes proclamation and says, woe unto humankind, for they contempt towards the Torah. For whoever does not occupy himself with the study of Torah is called Nazuf, the rebuked. As it is said, like a gold ring in the snout of a pig is a beautiful woman bereft of sense. And that they are quoting the book of Proverbs. And it says, and the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved upon the tablets. And this is interesting. This is where the rabbis are using the word cherut. Read not harut, engraved, but cherut, freedom. For there is no free man, but one that occupies himself with the study of the Torah. And whoever regularly occupies himself with the study of the Torah, he is surely exalted. So, in other words, to understand further the Mishnah from Pirkei Avot, it says that if you don't study Torah, you are rebuked. If you study Torah, you are exalted. But also, if you study Torah, you are not only exalted, but we call yourself a true free person. And this is what the rabbis understand. A true free person. In other words, the freedom that we are talking about from a slave in the Torah or from the land during the Jubilee, according to the rabbis, that's not true freedom. Okay? Yes, we use the same word, but it's not their ideal situation for freedom. That is a very important concept that we learn here from Pirkei Avot. So, in other words, the rabbis think that you can't be free unless you are engaged in the study of Torah, and this is a very different kind of freedom. One which is about existing from within a framework. Freedom through obligation and connection. Very important. Freedom through obligation and connection. And this is not just about the fulfilling of the mitzvot. It's way beyond that. Let's go to the next one. Because here we have, this is a very interesting one and quite a controversial Mishnah from Pirkei Avot. And before I read that, I'm going to switch to see if I have we have some comments here from Rocky. He says, so true, freedom requires obedience to a master. Well, Rocky, yeah, at some level, and we are going to deeper into that in a minute, because it's not to any master. The problem that we have serving masters is that they are not good masters, right? Pharaoh wasn't a problem with Pharaoh itself. The problem with Pharaoh is that it was a terrible leader, that it had everybody restrained, wouldn't give the Jewish people any kind of space to grow. In fact, if you think about it, the Jews were living in Egypt. The Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim, which means narrow place. So Pharaoh was the one who was keeping them in that narrow place where they will have no opportunity to grow, to develop, and to reach their potential. So then we left Egypt and we started to serve another master, that what that new master, that is God, was doing it is to guide us towards that place, toward a state of mind that it would allow you to grow, to develop, to become a better person. So through obedience to that master, at the end of the day, it's all benefit to you. But we believe that the only perfect master is God. All other masters are imperfect. And that's why we don't want to be slave to anybody except for God. In other words, not to serve anybody except for God. I don't want to use the word slavery because it has a bad connotation. But let me go back here to my slide. Okay, and read Pirkei Avot 3:5. It says, Rabbi Nehunia ben Hakana said, whoever takes upon himself the yoke of the Torah, they remove from him the yoke of government and the yoke of worldly concerns. And whoever breaks off from himself the yoke of the Torah, they place upon him the yoke of government and the yoke of worldly concerns. Why do I say that this is controversial? Because it could be understood in many different ways. Okay, so it doesn't mean that if you're a Torah scholar, you don't have to listen to the government. That's nonsense. That's a contradiction of the principle of Dina v'Malchuta Dina, which means the law of the land is your law. That is rabbinic law, and we are obligated to fulfill the law of the land. Although some people may choose to see it that way, right? Because we saw, for example, some rabbis in Israel now during the corona pandemic, that they were simply breaking the law to stay home and the prohibition of gatherings, and they don't care. They just decided to go to synagogue or send the kids to school because they thought that it was more important. Study Torah is more important than obeying the government. So it seems that they decided to understand this Mishnah in a way that if you accept the Torah, then you are above any other kind of law. That's nonsense. And thank God those were the exceptions in these days. But most people understood that concept. If the government said something, you have the obligation to obey. Okay? So if that's the case, what does it mean, this Mishnah? What is trying to say? That if you take upon yourself the yoke of Torah, you remove the yoke of the government and the yoke of worldly concerns. It's very interesting. You see, what I was thinking about this is that many times, and I see it because I spend a lot of time these days on social media, and I can see how people literally cannot sleep because of what the government does or doesn't do, right? I'm talking about not just the United States. I know in these days it seems to be very easy to attack the government of the United States because what they do or what they don't do. But it also happened in Canada and in every other country. Whatever the government does or doesn't do or does something that I don't agree, people get angry, people lose their sleep, people lose their peace, and they go on rants on social media. And it seems that whatever the government does is controlling their lives. But then if you study Torah, you will realize that that's not the way your life should work. You should not depend on external circumstances to find peace or meaning to your life. So that's why this Mishnah is mentioning the government and worldly concerns. Because sometimes, again, what other people do or they don't do, if we let them, they are going to control our lives. So we are going to be, so to speak, enslaved to their action or inaction. So we have to be very careful of that. And the Torah, not just through the mitzvot, but also through the examples and the teachings and the encouragement, is going to help you to break free from that. In Hebrew, we have a very simple word. I don't want to talk too much about that, which is Emunah, which usually is translated as faith, but it was beyond that. And so, at Sharizedek, we had a class, the Garden of Emunah. We already spent 6 or 7 weeks just talking about that. That's why I want to go too much about that. But the Torah will help you to find that peace of mind, that it will allow you to keep living a happy life regardless of external circumstances. But it takes for you the commitment to get engaged in the study of Torah. So you can give yourself the opportunity to break free from all other things that they might push you down. Okay? So basically, going back to Egypt, we basically traded one master that kept us in a narrow and depressing place for another that wants to take us to a better place. Remember the promised land? But we have to do our part. God talks to us through Torah. That's how we know what our new master wants from us. There, we have basically a manual for life. Have you ever tried to play a game and you don't have the instructions in front of you? You're going to fail because you don't know how to win. You don't know how to protect your goal. You need the rules of the game to become a good player. So the Torah is this book that it will help us to navigate our lives in this world, because the Torah represents what God wants from us. The Torah is the way we know what our master expects from us. But that expectation comes always as a way to bring us to a better place, not to take us back to Egypt, all the opposite, to get us out of Egypt for good and to drive us into the promised land. The problem is not everyone is ready to accept this, right? And I know, and you probably know, many people who seem to enjoy being angry at people and the government all the time. It's this is something quite amazing. Oh, sorry, sorry, I was covering some of the things. Now I had to get used with this caption kind of thing, right? Here I am again. I have to. This is all new. I wish you could see what I'm seeing here in my computer. It's kind of interesting. This software works out of my browser, so I can move all things, but I have to do it all myself, and hopefully it's going to get better in future streams. So when I learn better how to use this technology. Okay, let's continue with this. Go back to my my slide. Okay, so now this is interesting. It's one of the things that I mentioned before is some people seems to be okay with being angry all the time, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. Why will you why won't you find some alternative way of living instead of being all the time bitter and angry at people all the time? I understand sometimes people said or did terrible things to us, but we still have a life ahead of us, and we have to find a way to break free from that things that they're anchoring to a narrow place, to an Egypt. So this is not new. The fact that we don't want to be free in the way that the rabbis understand freedom. Look at this place from the Midrash, that it says even when God was offering the Torah to the people of Israel, and this is a famous story. It said God revealed Himself to the children of the wicked Esau and asked them, "Will you accept the Torah?" And they asked, "What does it say?" And he replied, "It says, you shall not murder." They said to him, "Murder is the legacy we received from our forefather Esau. As the verse states, you shall live by your sword." Then he appeared to the children of Ammon and Moab, the descendants of Lot. And they said to them, will you accept the Torah? They asked, what does it say? He said, you shall not commit adultery. They said to him, we are all the product of an adulterous relationship. As the verse states, the two daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. How can we accept the Torah? Then he appeared to the children of Ishmael and said to them, will you accept the Torah? They said to him, what does it say? And he said, you shall not steal. They said to him, that was the blessing with which our forefather was blessed. As it says, he will be a wild man. And it says, for I have stolen. Right? When he came to the Jewish people, from his right hand he presented a fiery Torah to them. They all opened their mouth and said, everything that God has said, we will do, and we will hear. Very interesting concept. Very interesting. So, what I learned from here, if you read again that text, is that each one of these nations, because again, this is not factual. This is a teaching that the rabbis present. Each one had an excuse for staying in the place they were. That we read there, it was not a good place. But they got comfortable with that. People don't want to change their routine, their lifestyle, even if they know that they have a better way of living. Because we get comfortable in our dysfunction. That's a very interesting concept. When people get comfortable on their dysfunction, we have the chance, we have a way, we have a path to get better lives, but we said, no, sorry, I don't want to take it because this is the way I've been living since I was born, so I'm not willing to change. Quite sad, I would say, because sometimes our past is also talking to our ear. It's not just people that they are telling us things, what to do. It's also our experiences. At one point, if you really want to be free in the way the rabbis envisioned freedom, you have to be able to break free from that too, from that, from the past, and to choose a new way to live your life. So let's go back here. I want to show you something. So how do we go from one place to another? How do we leave Egypt? How do we leave Pharaoh behind? And how do we accept God as our new master? Well, this is the good news. According to the rabbis, we don't have to do that overnight. It's not something that happened, poof, in a minute. We have a process. On Pesach, we understand this with the Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. The second night of Pesach, we start counting 49 days until Shavuot. Okay? But this is the interesting thing. Pesach represents the freedom, but Shavuot represents the law. That's why we receive the Torah. But the rabbis understood, and God understood when God gave the Torah, that you can't just go from one to the other. You have to prepare yourself to be ready to receive this Torah. Those 49 days between Pesach and Shavuot represents a period where we have to purify our heart to receive the Torah. It's a beautiful concept, the concept of purifying our hearts. You see, I always thought that the Torah was given so we could purify our hearts. But no, you have to do it yourself even before you are ready to receive the Torah. There is certain internal work that you have to do by yourself. Torah won't do that for you. If you are not ready to receive the Torah, to study Torah, to develop a relationship with God, if you are not ready to do that, the Torah won't teach you how to do it. That's something you have to figure out by yourself. And when you figure that out, then yes, believe me, because I went through that process. Then and only then, the Torah will take you to the next level. But there is certain basic work that you have to do yourself. So the counting of the Omer between Pesach and Shavuot is that process. And this is a beautiful thing because I got used to count the Omer every night. In fact, I have an app in my phone that I can show you how it works. It's called my Omer, and where is it? You can see it. It's too bright, eh? My phone is too bright. You can see it. But every day when I count this, it gives me the blessing. It will also give me, there is better. You see, a meditation, something that you think about in this, something and they're very basic things, but believe it or not, little by little is preparing you for this transition to leaving Egypt behind and accepting the Torah as a new way of life. Something is really, really beautiful. So let me go back here. And how does the Omer, the counting of the Omer works is like this. Let me share it with you. I have a beautiful text here. Look at this. The Omer on Pesach was from the barley harvest. That's actually the way it works. If you read in the Torah how they used to count the Omer back in the day, what they did is the first day they will bring an offering of barley to the temple. So the measure of barley that they will bring was called the Omer. It seems to be a handful. We're not exactly how much is the Omer, but that's basically it's something that they used to bring. But the important thing is to remember that it was barley, because during the time of Pesach is the beginning of the harvest of barley in the land of Israel. Okay, so that was the offering. 49 days later, on Shavuot, the offering was wheat, but not just wheat in the raw form. It was bread made out of wheat. So again, on Pesach, raw barley. On Shavuot, baked bread made out of wheat. So this rabbi says, barley is mainly food for animals. Wheat is food for human beings. So the Torah hints to us that physical independence by itself still leaves a person, from the Torah perspective, on the animal level. The counting of the 49 days signifies a sevenfold refining process and marks our progress to full human status with your acceptance of the Torah at Sinai, 7 weeks after the Exodus. What a beautiful thing that we are, how this counting of the Omer is not just changing one master from another, is also to elevate ourselves and to discover all the potential that we have. That's what happened with human beings. Animals usually are one level. They do one thing. We, human beings, have the capacity to do so many different things that sometimes it's difficult to figure out what we're supposed to do or why we came to this world. What is our purpose? What should be doing here? God sent us to this world for specific purpose. It's up to us to discover what it is so we can serve God the proper way. Because I believe one of the ways we have to serve God is by doing what we're supposed to be doing in this world. Sometimes it takes a lot of figuring out, and sometimes also takes a lot to, day after day, to shush that Pharaoh, the voice of Pharaoh that is trying to keep us in Egypt, right? In that narrow place. They said, no, you're not, don't even try to do that. You don't have the talent, you don't have the means, you don't have the experience, you are too old, you are too young, etc., etc., etc. This is a perfect time now between Pesach and Shavuot to realize that we can do better. We can evolve. We can expand our potential. We can do more. So don't get trapped in your Egypt. Get rid of Pharaoh. Stop listening to people who tried to limit you. Very important. Now, let me give you a few examples that I find it kind of funny of people who clearly they had a talent, but they were trying to convince that they didn't. And they almost fell into that trap. Let me see, before I do that, let's see. Oh, Lauren is watching. Jay is here. Okay, so let me go back here and show you some examples that I found it kind of funny. First one, you know this guy, Elvis Presley, right? Now, very famous guy. What not too many people know, that is in his 8th grade music class, he earned a C-, which is below average, right? And his teacher advised him that he had no aptitude for singing. And also, after a performance at Nashville's Grand Ole Opry, Elvis was told by the concert hall manager that he was better off returning to Memphis and driving trucks. So that was his former career. And I will say that he did pretty good, but that was after he stopped listening to all the people who told him that he had no talent. Because basically, he did his own soul searching to realize that his mission was singing. He knew that. But we have to be the same. We have to know what we are good for. And then you have to pursue your dream. I believe that God put that idea into your mind. And we have to pursue it, and that's the best way to serve God. The next one, very famous, was Walt Disney. You know that he was fired from Kansas City Star in 1919 because his editor said he, quote unquote, lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Can you believe it? If had he heard all his people who were telling him, no, forget about it, you don't have imagination, you don't have good ideas, we wouldn't have Disney today. But no, he kept pushing his dream. And I also will say he did pretty well. And there is another one that I will share with you. And this is quite interesting because you will see why. Stephen King, the famous author. I don't know how many of you know that King's most renowned and first book, Carrie, was rejected, listen to this, 30 times. He tried 30 different publishers and it was rejected 30 times. So Stephen King decided to toss the book, put it in the garbage, physically in the garbage, with which his wife then went through the trash to rescue and convince him to resubmit it. Okay? After 30 times, he would say no. Finally, in 1973, the book Carrie was accepted by a small publishing house who gave him an advance of $2,500. Okay? Okay, it's a bit better than nothing. So the paperback right would later earn him around $400,000. But today, King's books have sold more than 350 million copies. And that is because at one point, and this is thanks to his wife, he stopped listening to the people and said, forget it. You don't have a talent as an author. Do something else. Try to do something else, but no. Keep pushing it. Keep following his dream. And eventually, he became the famous author that he is today. So, but first, you have to understand that we all have inside these two sides. One we call the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara. What is that? The Yetzer HaTov is usually called the good inclination, and the Yetzer Hara is usually called the evil inclination. And the evil inclination is not just something, a voice inside your head. Sometimes it comes from people that they will try to limit you. The Yetzer HaTov is the one that is guiding you through the good path. Okay? So the interesting thing is the rabbis believe that the Yetzer Hara is sent by God. Why? Why is the Yetzer Hara necessary? Why do you need people telling you things? Why do you have this voice in your head telling you you cannot do it? It's because by overcoming that, that's when you have the opportunity to become a better person. Like in these times, right? During the coronavirus, that we have so many people that actually they are learning to do new things that otherwise they would have never realized the potential that they had. But now, because they have all these limitations, when they overcome that, they become so much better. So the Yetzer Hara in Judaism is something that we don't have to eliminate. What we have to learn is how to control it, how to use it to our benefit. Because without the Yetzer Hara, we wouldn't get out of bed. Yetzer Hara, for example, will push you towards greed. Greed by itself is bad, but if it's controlled, it may even push you to open a business because you want to make money, and through that business you could be a blessing to so many other people. Yetzer Hara is where the urge for sex, for example, comes from, which by itself and out of control is bad, but in a controlled environment is what allows you to have a family, and so forth. So the control we need to take charge of the Yetzer Hara is the Torah. The Torah is teaching us how to control it. When controlling it, I mean to use it to our benefit. For that is to become better people. It's a quite interesting concept. What Alan Cantor said, counting the Omer, as I understand, is agricultural. 50 days grain seed planted with mature. So when you plant your grain, you should be able to harvest it 50 days later. No, actually, well, all the things in the Torah, they have different levels, right? One is, yes, is one side is agricultural, but it's also, it has different levels of meaning. It's not just agricultural, it also have that other kind of teaching from us. So, but going back to the agricultural of the Omer, during Pesach is the time of the harvesting of the barley. The wheat takes a little longer. So that's why the harvest of the wheat takes place around the time of Shavuot. That's what it is. You planted way before that. Way before that. So let's go back to here, go back to the mitzvot. As I mentioned, the mitzvot and the Torah are teaching us how to control the Yetzer Hara to our benefit. The Midrash says, Midrash Rabbah, Rav says the commandments were given only for the purpose of refining human beings. For why should the Holy One, blessed be He, care where one slaughters an animal at the throat or at the nape of the neck? Thus, the commandment's sole purpose is to refine humanity. So you have to understand that the commandments, the mitzvot, were not given for the sake of God. God doesn't need commandments. So we can't affect God based on what we do or with what we don't do. That's not the way it works. God is infinite. So the commandments were not given to make our lives miserable. All the opposite, to make our lives better. Every commandment helps us develop an area of our life. And even those commandments that we don't understand, they're also teaching us that we can't understand everything. Also that we are not in control of everything. And I believe, during this time of coronavirus, we learn pretty quickly how little control we have. In fact, I would say that control is an illusion that we have. We believe that we have control over things, and then we quickly realize that we have control over nothing. You see, for some people, that was a shock. For Torah people, they already knew that. They already knew that because Torah is teaching us that all the time, that we are not in control of virtually anything. So that's what it said, that every commandment that we have has a purpose, but the purpose is for us. If you don't do something or you do something, you're not doing God a favor or the disfavor. You don't have to affect God in any way of shape, but you do have the power to affect yourself based on what you do or what you don't do. It's a reality. You see, but this is a full commitment in our lives. Rabbi Simblai expounded 613 commandments, we're told, to Moshe. So that's what we know, right? That there are 613 mitzvot. Out of that, we have 365 prohibitions corresponding to the numbers of days in a solar year, and 248 obligations corresponding to the number of parts in the person's body. This is from the Talmud. So what I believe is this division reflects the idea that mitzvot involve the totality of the human being and encompass the totality of life. But not to enslave us, but to liberate us from our limitations, but the liberation, the kind of freedom as understood by the Rabbi. So, yeah. Actually, that's what I wanted to present to you today. If you have any questions, I would like to read it from the chat now. I have the chat open, so we can talk a little bit about this before we finish the class. So let's see if we have something. We have questions from our viewers. Let's see. No, Alan, you are the last one to send something. Okay. So that's great. That was great to have you all watching this class. I wanted to bring a little bit of inspiration during Pesach and hopefully to encourage you to count the Omer. It's something that not too many people do. It's not the most popular tradition in Judaism, but I think it's something so powerful because it brings us back to the basics. Sometimes things that we thought we knew, but we don't necessarily know how to be truly free. We are enslaved so many different ways to so many different things. And I believe the counting of the Omer and eventually to get engaged in Torah study has the potential to give us the tools to have a happier life. It's at least that's what I believe. Okay, so thank you all for watching. Thank you for giving us your time to be connected, and please, after the video, give us a thumb up to the videos. And remember to subscribe to our channel so we have the opportunity to let you know whenever we go live. And yeah, we have much more to come. Stay tuned and hope to see you soon in person when all this craziness go away. But again, stay tuned to our channel on YouTube, on Facebook, that we have so much material to share with you. So as I always say, we might be isolated in our homes, but remember, always remember that you are not alone. Chag Sameach, and again, thanks for watching.